This week's edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight is brought to you by Leff Atlanta Media, Atlanta's best journalist database. Subscribe at leffsatlantamedia.com. Welcome to the next edition of our Four Questions Journalist Spotlight. We are talking today with Blake DeVine with WANF Atlanta News First. Here in news on Channel 46 here in Atlanta, if you still use the numbers. And the man who I say has the coolest name in television.
Well,
So,
thank you.
so thanks for taking this some time today, Blake. We appreciate it. So tell me first, what's your job and what's your role at WANF?
So I am a news reporter here at WANF in Atlanta. Right now, I am a morning reporter. I say right now because in the news business, there's always all sorts of shifts and they're always moving people around. Currently, though, I work in the mornings, both on the weekends and during the weekdays, meaning that I get to the station every morning at 3:30 a.m., meaning I set my alarm for around 2:15 in the morning, drink a cup of coffee, grab clothes, get over to the station, and I'm usually on air at 5 a.m. Some mornings, if there's a lot going on, 4:30 a.m. I'm reporting a lot on overnight breaking news, previewing major events in the city. On the weekends, it's a little more lighthearted. I was just interviewing you and some of your associates at MomoCon. Weekends are a little more light, weekdays a little more hard news. But I am basically on the ground reporting throughout the streets of Atlanta and the metro area pretty much every day, and every day is a new challenge and a new story. We never really, I would like to say with news, you never really stay on the same thing. It's not project based for the most part. Every day presents a new adventure.
Yeah, and that's what I tell folks is, if you're thinking, you know, your local TV news is planning a week or two ahead of time, then for the most part, think again, right?
Exactly. I particularly check the weather every night before I go to bed. I pack an outfit, I pack lunch. Although there are times where I wake up and I see what's going on at 2:15 in the morning, and what they're going to have me on is completely different from what I anticipated. So I have to dress accordingly. And that's something that I always am thinking about. The weather factors very much. If I'm going to City Hall or some sort of political rally at the Capitol, I dress a little nicer. If I'm reporting on a storm in one of those smaller counties like Paulding or Hall County, and it's going to be me in the rain getting poured on in mud, I probably will wear some rain gear and boots, which is a lot different than dressing nice for the Capitol.
Do you have a go bag just in the back of your car all the time with all the different options ready to go?
I do. I have some fire pants, which are like flame retardant, which are great, and then some hiking boots, which can be, for rain or any sort of story. A few hats, sunscreen, mosquito prevention stuff, some snacks, because you never know how long you're going to be out there. We do have 8 or 9 hour shifts every day, but when breaking news breaks, there's no telling how long you'll be out there and whether or not there's a bathroom.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you got to have lots of snacks and lots of water because, as you said, you never know if you're going to be somewhere where snacks are available, right?
Exactly. I always pack a hearty lunch with a few snacks, and a lot of times I don't eat all of it, but I'm just thankful to have it for a day where I might be somewhere for quite some time.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I worked at one of my jobs, agency jobs. We worked for Home Depot, and I think the dress code in the office back then was suit and tie. But if you showed up in a suit and tie at Home Depot, they would laugh you out of the building. So we would have like, you know, street clothes hanging on the back because you know how it is. The client will call and say, "Hey, I need to come over for a meeting, in 2 hours," and you don't have time to go home, so you gotta quick make a change and put on the Home Depot outfit so you can get over there and blend in with what the rest of them are wearing at Home Depot.
Oh yeah.
So how long have you been at WANF now?
I've been at WANF since last April, so it's been about a year and 3 months, give or take. It's been quite the year. I mean, man, we have Jimmy Carter pass away at the beginning of this year. We had an election in Atlanta. We had a tragedy up in Winder, and we had a lot of soccer last summer. We had that big tournament. It's been an exciting year and 3 months since I've been here. A lot of changes. The city is always getting ready to host some sort of mega event. That's the biggest thing I've taken away from this market. And they're just always is some sort of new thing that they are developing, which is it's been an exciting place to live and work.
So, and where did you come from most recently before Atlanta?
Before that, I was at an NBC affiliate in Austin, Texas. So
Okay.
the live music capital of the world. That was a lot of fun. Great barbecue, a lot of really good entertainment. Got to cover that F1 race at the Circuit of the Americas. Texas or Austin is also the capital of Texas, so big political city. It was a very good time. Learned a lot as a journalist there.
You did the state capitol beat, I guess.
Was covering City Hall, particularly was
Okay.
a lot of
Okay.
times with that Austin City Hall, which is quite interesting. Austin City Hall is very liberal, left wing, but the Capitol, very red, very right wing. So there's a lot of clash going on in Austin between the city and their ordinances versus the state and their politics, and they're always butting heads. It made for some really interesting reporting.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. We did some work in Austin for South by Southwest a couple years ago, and I got to spend a couple of days there. And as you said, ate lots of really good barbecue and heard lots of good music for around the city. So it was really interesting, kind of learning about what Austin's all about, and got to see some music in what is it, Austin City Limits? Is that the name of the venue?
Yep, that's the big music festival that's usually every fall. They're so big now they actually have 2 weekends of it. 3-day festival. It's the same lineup, but that's their big claim to fame when it comes to music.
What's the name of there's like a music venue, like an inside music venue. It's a country music. I can't remember.
Probably called Live at Austin City Limits. It actually has
Okay.
the namesake Austin
Okay.
City Limits, and it's a
Okay.
really
I
famous
think that's what
indoor.
I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how we got tickets, but we ended up in there. It was very cool. Small, nice, small, fairly intimate venue, just, and great music. It was really, that was really fun. So, I kind of from what I gather from having worked with you the last year or so is, there's kind of a combination of you get assigned stories and you pitching stories and get to do stories that you want to do. And I would sounds like more during the week, it's kind of like here's the breaking news, here's what we need to cover, and then you have a little more flexibility on the weekends. Is that fair to say?
That is very accurate to say. Weekends, we have a little more flexibility. Like I said, weekends in Atlanta are filled with fun runs, events, festivals. Specifically during the summer, we always joke that Atlanta is festival season. There is always something going on at Piedmont
Yeah.
Park during the week. Yeah, it's a little more rigid assigned. We're covering breaking news overnight and then switching over to maybe a press conference that might be at 9 or 10, and then fronting that during our noon newscast.
Then on the weekends, I think you guys you're live what 6 to 7, and then 9 to 10:30. Is that right? Or nine to
Correct. And
11,
then on
9 to 11,
Sunday,
9 to 11.
9 to yeah, I believe it's 9 to 11.
nine
I
to
usually
11.
go
Yeah.
do about four
Yeah.
live reports.
Okay. Yeah. So, I always like to tell folks, if you want to get in touch with Blake, what's the best way to do that, and how far in advance. And obviously, breaking news stuff trumps a lot of things. But if you've got a featurey kind of thing that you want to pitch for the weekends, how far in advance should people reach out to you?
Yeah, first of all, I'd say the best way to reach out to me with a pitch is an email, just because that way it's documented. That way, I can forward it to my assignment managers and say, hey, take a look. What are your thoughts on it? You and I, we have a personal relationship. When you have something coming up, you usually text me or message me. Um, if I don't know you in particular, I think it's sometimes better to send an email. That way I can say, okay, that's the way to respond, and that way
Yeah.
I can get it out to people. I'd say usually a week in advance is great. Once it gets beyond a week, which sounds crazy for all other professions, it's honestly out of sight, out of mind, and
Yeah.
it's easy to forget. If you send me something about something going on, what is today, the 6th of June? About the 6th of July. I mean, I might be in love with the pitch and think it's a great story, and I'll bookmark it. But I'll be honest with you, I get about 500 to 600 emails every single day in my inbox, and 70% of them are just story pitches from random PR companies or public entities or government agencies. So even if I save it in a little folder called Story Ideas, it will get lost unless you're following up with me. So
Right.
those are the two
That's a
things.
big it's a big folder, huh?
Exactly, exactly. And I think the big thing is following up, and persistence really pays dividends because we will be sure to do our best to cover your event. But unfortunately, because we're getting so much news sent to our emails and texted to us and during the daily news cycle, it's very hard to just be so locked into something so far in advance.
Yeah, in fact, like MomoCon is kind of an unusual thing because it's a big event that happens the same time every year. So, yeah, sometimes for that, I might just kind of send people a save the date 2 months ahead of time, and then say, okay, I'm gonna circle back when we get 2 or 3 weeks out, and if there's a advanced story or something else, we can do that, before the event. Otherwise, you're doing it the day of the event, and it varies. Sometimes you want more people in an event, and sometimes the event is sold out, and you're like, doesn't really matter, right?
Exactly. And the one thing I will say, we've had conversations in the past. I never want to spring a pitch to you the day of and ask you, as somebody who works with all these companies and political figures, to have to pull something together that is just spur of the moment. Sometimes, unfortunately, with breaking news, that is what we need at that moment. But for the most part, I find that the quality of your interview, the shoot goes so much better when I'm more in communication with you a few days in advance so that you can gather everyone, you can prep them on what they're going to be asked, how we're going to do it so that it's less chaotic and it's more polished. And I try my best as a journalist here in Atlanta to work with PR people and, public spokespeople to let them know kind of what we're thinking and let them know somewhat of the idea. We're not going to give you exact interview questions. That's one thing that a lot of PR people that are new in the industry always ask for, because we want them to be more natural and conversational and less scripted. But I always try to not just spring it on you the day of.
Yeah, and we tell clients that too. You're not gonna get all the questions at a time. You make it the general flow, but a lot of it for companies and PR folks is anticipating. Like if you're doing a press event, then whether it's one particular station saying, "Hey, I wanna go live at 7 o'clock in the morning," but you know somebody's gonna do it. Somebody's gonna go live, or somebody's gonna want an interview. So it's prepping your people for all the different things that could happen. You might have somebody who says, "I'm going to be live from here," or somebody might say, "I'm going to tape an interview from here," or somebody who says, "I can't make it to your event at 10, but I want to come out at 2. What can I do at 2?" So it's my job to kind of be thinking with my client, how do if this happens, how do we make sure that it happens? Because like that Decatur World Cup thing we did a couple of weeks ago, there were some, most of the dayside or morning reporters covered it, but there were one or two afternoon reporters or evening reporters who called it, afternoon or 2 o'clock and said, "Hey, I want to talk to somebody about this." And, say, "Okay, come on out. We'll get you somebody. We'll stand in front of the same place we stood this morning when, we did the event, and we'll figure out how to make it look good, right?"
Exactly. It's all everyone's on a different schedule, but the one takeaway, at least in this news market, is there is always a show seemingly on air. Somebody's always about to go live.
Well, let's see. I think let's see. You guys have news from 4:30 until
Nine. Not
9, and then
until about 9:30 because we have a 9 o'clock newscast, and then we go
yeah,
back at noon.
but then
Um,
you've got that ATL live show at 9:30, right? And then you're
yes,
and then you're back at noon, and then you have a 3 o'clock, right?
three, and then we'll go from three till about, and then we have a new seven, which started in
Right.
January. That's about 40 minutes. And then we go 10 and 11. And we're going to add even more coming in August. So there is always going to be an opportunity to be live, whether that's streaming a press conference or a reporter like me.
Yeah, the only times right now when I think there isn't a local news show happening in Atlanta is probably between 1 and 3 so far, unless
Hmm.
you guys change that.
Who knows? I'll be the first. I'll be the second to know.
After the GM tells you, "Hey, guess what? You're the host of a new 1 o'clock show, the 2 o'clock show, the 3 o'clock show." Um, yeah, and then I guess, Channel 2, they go till, let's see, Channel 2 goes till, they go till 11:30 or 12. Channel 11 goes to like 11:30. Yeah, so there's news, almost till midnight, depending on the station, 11:30 or 12. So yeah, it's tough to find a time slot where, you can't tune in and get your news somewhere, right?
Exactly. And
Which,
that's
which
the goal.
I guess that's the goal, right?
Yeah,
People don't just watch news at, 6:30 in the evening anymore, waiting for that one newscast. It's when they need it. It's when they're off from work. And Atlanta's such a heavy traffic city. People don't always get home by 6 o'clock to watch the news. So hence you guys having a 7 o'clock. And I think there was another station that had 8 o'clock news for a little bit. I don't think they're doing that anymore. And then you guys have a 9 o'clock for people who, if you don't want to stay up till 11, go watch at 9. And a couple of stations have, Channel 5 has a 10 o'clock show. And you guys have a 10 o'clock show too?
we do. We got rid of
Okay.
our nine
I got
a
rid of the
little
9. Okay.
ago. Now
Okay.
we have the 10 and the 11.
Okay.
Yeah,
So then, yeah, the 9 was on Peachtree TV, right? I think.
correct. Yep. And
Yeah.
our 10 is on Peachtree TV
10's on
currently.
Peachtree TV. Okay. All right. All right. Yeah. And that's the trick, is trying to, keep track of where all the options are, right? There's a lot of them.
And abundant.
So, yeah. So are there topics that are kind of in the back of your head? You're thinking, gosh, I'd really love to cover this story. I think this is important. And, it's not necessarily a breaking news story, but it's something that you want to cover when you have a little time to dig into it.
Yes, I've had a very keen interest in the autonomous car space. Coming from Austin, Texas, they had been at the forefront of introducing autonomous driverless cars as a way of getting people around. And coming into the Atlanta market, right when I moved here, I had started to spot those white Jaguars, otherwise called Waymos, driving around with their spinny top.
Right.
And I had recognized them from the Austin, Texas market where they were starting to integrate over there. And there's a lot of them right now, more than what was before. They were doing about a year's worth of testing. Now, if you have an Uber app and you check to be a participant, you may get picked up by an autonomous car. And I think they give you some sort of credit, if I'm not mistaken, as a test subject. But then their goal in the next month or so is to fully integrate Uber with their service. Basically, if you call an Uber, you may get picked up by a driverless car and have nobody driving except a robo car, which is quite a phenomenon, especially considering where we are with so much traffic in Atlanta. And Lyft has also announced a partnership with May Mobility, and they're doing a fleet of self-driving Toyota minivans. I've seen a few of those, not as many, but a lot of driverless cars coming into the Atlanta market. That's something I've had a huge interest in.
I feel like I'd want to have a choice. I'd want him to say, you know, can we send a driverless car to pick you up, as opposed to the driverless car showing up when you're expecting a driver. That might make, I don't know. That would make me nervous.
Especially with the way people drive here.
Right, right. I mean, I have enough issues with the actual people driving. I don't know. Maybe I need to try it.
Yeah.
Have you tried it? Have you done the driverless cars?
So I have, when I was in Austin, I got to drive they were cruise cars, and that company had some issues. They had to temporarily shut down their fleet. They were expanding faster than Waymo. Now Waymo has taken the forefront, but I was able to drive with the CEO, interview him in the car. We filmed it with the GoPro. It was a really cool story. And I've
Cool.
been dying to get in one of those Waymos, but they've been very on edge about doing a news story because they want all their ducks in a row. But now that they've partnered with Uber, I've made some good connections with the Uber PR people, and they're way more into doing on-camera interviews. So, knock on wood, my goal is to do an interview in one of the Waymos and get some answers about how they plan to integrate it.
That's fascinating. Okay, well, I guess I'm gonna have to try it at some point.
Yes, and you definitely will see it if you're walking around Midtown or downtown. You can't miss one of those white Jaguars. They're all over the place.
Can't be more nerve-wracking than, when I was teaching my sons how to drive. That was crazy.
Hmm.
You know that curve that goes from 85 south to 75 north, that sharp hairpin turn, right?
Yep.
So my younger son, we were teaching him how to drive, and I said, okay, let's do this. and he's doing this turn. I'm like, too fast, too fast, too fast, too fast. I'm like white knuckled on the dashboard. It's like he's because he's coming off the highway doing 65. I'm like, I can't do 65 on this 180-degree turn.
No, no, it'll go
But
way too fast.
yeah, but he figured it out. All right, so the next question, and I gave you a fair warning. This is the hardest question that people I don't know, I see people have trouble with, but it's kind of the most fun question. What's the coolest thing about Blake that people might not know about?
So, I would guess I would say my origin story as an on-camera reporter came from my background as doing performing arts at a young age in high school. Actually, sang in an a cappella choir that was able to sing at a pretty high level. We traveled into Europe when I was in high school, and we sing at all these historic churches in England and France. I actually got to sing at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris prior to it burning down, and I know it's been restored, but at the old Notre Dame Cathedral. So I have a background singing a cappella and performing in theater arts, and I really credit a lot of those skills leading me to what I do now. Public speaking is something that a lot of people have a lot of anxiety over, but because I was stepping on a stage at such a young age, that has really translated into what I do for my career right now. And I still love theater. I see a lot of shows at the Fox Theater when I can. It's such a nice venue. I don't perform actively right now, but that's all in my background.
All right. All right. So next one, you can pick a give two options, either the last book you've read or the last podcast you've listened to. Pick
You know,
one of them.
yeah, currently I'll answer it quickly in two parts, but I'm reading the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover. Dave Ramsey is obviously a very well-known radio host, but also life coach on budgeting money, getting people out of debt. I've been very interested listening to him over the radio, but now I'm reading his book, learning some things about personal finance and budgeting. And then I just listened to a really great podcast that I just learned about, honestly, over the last few days. It's called the Acquired Podcast. It's anywhere you can find a podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and it basically dives into all these massive companies and how they started and how they've built into what they've become right now. I just listened to this episode that was talking about Costco's origin story and how it eventually built up into this massive successful company that it is now. So it's called the Acquired Podcast. Would highly recommend it to people that are interested in learning about major companies and how they started.
All right. Next one. Next couple are kind of I call this the lightning round. So what's your favorite local restaurant?
You know, that's a real tough one. I would say there's so much good food in Atlanta, but I like the Southern Kitchen. They have a few locations. I go to the one in Midtown. It's where I actually went when I was interviewing for this job here at A&F. They took me out to lunch, and that kind of sparked my interest. It has really good Southern food.
Yeah, that is a good choice. All right. Favorite guilty pleasure.
Ooh, I hate to admit it, but it is getting a milkshake at Cookout. I had never lived in somewhere with a Cookout prior to Atlanta. I love milkshakes, and now whenever I am feeling like I've accomplished something or want to have a dessert, Cookout.
There you go. So whenever I go to the dentist, I go to Chick-fil-A afterward. That's my I feel like I've got my teeth cleaned. I can go to Chick-fil-A. I like Chick-fil-A. I don't go there every day, but it's kind of my thing. Go to the dentist, go to Chick-fil-A. All right.
Nice.
Favorite local getaway.
So I really enjoyed going to the small town of Helen, Georgia. I went there for their German festival last fall. They have this amazing little town, and also they have this sky coaster there. It's so pretty in the fall over there. I want to go back. Local
Yep.
getaway, Helen, Georgia. Highly recommend.
Yeah, just go somewhere other than October, right? When it's kind of crazy busy,
It was
right?
pretty packed. We went on
Yeah.
when it was a weird off day, but it was still swarmed with people. But it's not as hot then, so it's enjoyable. And they have
Well,
a little river that goes through it.
yes, you can tube down the river. Yeah.
I did not
Um,
do that, but I may
you
have
didn't
to.
you didn't do yeah, I know my kids have done that. They've you get just inner tube kind of thing. You do a float. There's a couple of outfitters that do it. And you're off what Thursday, Fridays usually?
Correct. Yep.
Right. So you can take advantage of some of these things when the rest of us are stuck in the office working, right?
Exactly. That is always the benefit of the odd news schedule.
All right, and last question, what is your favorite non-work hobby?
Ooh. Recently it has been going to Bobby Jones Golf Course in Buckhead and just hitting on the range. When I moved to Georgia, it was right around the Masters season. I watched how much of a big deal golf is here in Atlanta, in Georgia. And so I said, you know what, I should really get back into golfing because everyone seems to golf here. And I don't want to be an embarrassment if I get invited out with a group of buddies and just be taking up so much time. And so going out there, it's a public free course. It's beautiful. You can get a huge bucket of balls for about $20. And that for me is just gives me a sense of being out in nature. Don't really have any phone when I'm doing it. Just hitting on the range at Bobby Jones in Buckhead.
Yeah, I have I do some volunteer work with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and they've done a Top Golf fundraiser for a couple of years. So that's as close as I get as I've gotten to a golf course in the last bunch of years, and it usually takes me a bunch of strokes to kind of get back into the swing of it, as they say. It's a
Exactly.
a little golf joke there. Yeah, I'm here all week. All right. Anything else that about your work that we haven't talked about that you want to mention?
I
Any
would
any uh any nonprofits or groups that you want to give a shout out to that you support that you really like?
Some of the best organizations that I've worked for in the Atlanta area have just been I guess the group of people that I've been most affected by during my time is just all the parents, the teachers, the students up in Wyandotte Appalachian High School. There was a period of time I was going there every single day for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's been obviously taken a toll on journalists emotionally. I've talked to several other colleagues that have had, emotional reaction going up there and talking to people after they've lost loved ones and just seeing how they have been so resilient as a community and gone through so much tragedy. Um, just watching how they have responded to this has been pretty inspirational. And so just those learning and talking to those people on the worst day of their life to then building back has been very powerful.
Yeah, and I've heard that from reporters a lot. That's something that people don't really think about because they just see the, you know, reporting on TV. But when you're reporting on horrific events like that, it's gonna take a toll, just a mental toll when and you're seeing things that the viewers aren't seeing because you can't show it, and you're talking to people who, not you can't put all their worst moments on the air necessarily, but I've talked to a lot of reporters at for events like that who just like they had to take a day or two off you know, just to decompress and kind of get back on a some kind of solid footing. So I appreciate that you have to do that. We have been talking with Blake DeVine, reporter with WANF TV, Atlanta News First. Blake, thank you for taking some time with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And as always, you can find our archive of journalist spotlights on our YouTube channel. And if you want to hear the audio version, you can go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else. All those other places you can get podcasts. We're all over the place. Just Google 4 questions journalist spotlight and it will pop up. And click that subscribe button. And you don't get any prizes or anything, but just click the subscribe button anyway. Just because. And we will see everyone in 2 weeks. Thank you.